Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we can just go straight English. Okay, this is Jai and Vijay, cursed by the sages. And here the Lord is speaking to the Kumaras and the both the Jai and Vijay. In the presence of the Kumaras. And he says the following. Yatsevara charana pavitrarenam
Yatsevara charana padma pavitrarenam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Nashir viraktamapimam vijahati yasya
Nashri viratamapimam vijahati yasya
Preksha navarta itare niyamam vahanti
Prekshalavata ikare niyamam bhavanti
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenam
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabhya shilam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Nashri viraktamapimam vijahati jasya
Nashri viratamapimam vijahati yasya
Preksha lavarta itare niyamam vahanti
Prekshalavata ikare niyamam bhavanti
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenam
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Nashri viraktamapimam vijahati yasya
Nashri viratamapimam vijahati yasya
Prekshalavata itare niyamam vahanti
Prekshalavata ikare niyamam vahanti
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenum
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenum
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashilam
Nashrir viraktamapimam vijahati yasya
Nashri viraktamapimam vijahati yasya
Prekshalavarta itare niyaman vahanti.
Prekshalavarta itare niyaman vahanti.
Ladies.
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenu.
Yatsevaya charana padma pavitrarenu.
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashiram.
Sadyakshata kilamalam pratilabdashiram.
Nashrir virakamapi mam vijayati yasyam.
Nashrir virakamapi mam vijayati yasyam.
Vrikshalavarta itare niyamam vahanti.
Prekshalavarta itare niyaman vahanti.
Yat.
Yat.
Of whom? Sevaya.
Sevaya.
By the service.
By the service.
Charana.
Charana.
Feet.
Feet.
Padma.
Padma.
Lotus.
Lotus.
Pavitra.
Pavitra.
Sacred.
Sacred.
Renum.
Renum.
The dust.
The dust.
Sadhya.
Sadhya.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Shata.
Shata.
Wiped out.
Wiped out.
Akila.
Akila.
All.
All.
Malam.
Malam.
Sins.
Sins.
Pratilabdha.
Pratilabdha.
Acquired.
Acquired.
Shilam.
Shilam.
Disposition.
Disposition.
Na.
Na.
Na. Shri.
Shri.
The goddess of fortune.
The goddess of fortune.
Viraktam.
Viratkam.
Have no attachment.
Have no attachment.
Api.
Api.
Even though.
Even though.
Mam.
Mam.
Me.
Me.
Vijahati.
Vijahati.
Leave.
Leave.
Yasya.
Yasya.
Of the goddess of fortune.
The goddess of fortune.
Prekshalava arta.
Prekshalavarta.
For obtaining a slight favor.
For obtaining a slight favor.
Itare.
Itare.
Others like Brahma.
Others like Brahma.
Niyamam.
Niyamam.
Sacred vows.
Sacred vows.
Vahanti.
Vahanti.
Observe.
Observe.
The Lord continued, because I'm the servitor of my devotees, my lotus feet have become so sacred that they immediately wipe out all sin. And I have acquired such a disposition that the goddess of fortune does not leave me, even though I have no attachment for her, and others praise her beauty and observe sacred vows to secure from her even a slight favor. Please repeat, the Lord continued.
The Lord continued.
Because I'm the servitor of my devotees,
Because I am the servitor of my devotees.
my lotus feet have become so sacred
My lotus feet has become so sacred
that they immediately wipe out all sin.
that they immediately wipe out all sin.
And I have acquired such a disposition
And I have acquired such a disposition
that the goddess of fortune
that the goddess of fortune
does not leave me,
does not leave me,
even though I have no attachment for her,
even though I have no attachments for her,
and others praise her beauty.
and others praise her beauty.
Observe sacred vows
And observe sacred vows
to secure from her
to secure from her
even a slight favor.
even a slight favor.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The relationship between the Lord and his devotee is transcendently beautiful, as the devotee thinks that it is due to being a devotee of the Lord that he is elevated in all good qualities. So the Lord also thinks that it is because of his devotion to the servitor that all his transcendental glories have increased. In other words, as the devotee is always anxious to render service to the Lord, so the Lord is ever anxious to render service to the devotee. The Lord admits herein that although he certainly has the quality that anyone who receives a slight particle of the dust of his lotus feet becomes at once a great personality, this greatness is due to the affection for his devotee. It is because of this affection that the goddess of fortune does not leave him, and that not only one but many thousands of goddesses of fortune engage in his service. in the material world simply to get a little favor from the goddess of fortune, people observe many rigid regulations of austerity and penance. The Lord cannot tolerate any inconvenience on part of the devotee. He is therefore famous as Bhakta Vatsala. Om Jnana-Tirandasya Jnana-Darshanataya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
The Lord continued, because I'm the servitor of my devotees, my lotus feet have become so sacred that they immediately wipe out all sins, and I have acquired such a disposition that the goddess of fortune does not leave me. Even though I have no attachment for her, and others praise her beauty and observe sacred vows to secure from her even a slight favor. Well, here, Lord Narayan is expressing this extraordinary, well, he's making an extraordinary statement, and that he's God, and yet his qualities or potencies are as a consequence of his serving his servant. So of course this, in one sense, appears to be solely a statement of humility. But as we can analyze, it's not just that, it's actually a existential or ontological phenomena that takes place. Of course, Krishna is, and here we're talking about Lord Narayan, and this becomes even more so for Krishna. When Krishna hid from the gopis and then finally reappeared, and at that time they were a little disturbed as to why it is that they wanted to express their love for him. Why is it that he caused them pain? And so they questioned him. And of course Krishna's answer was ultimately that I just did this in order to increase your love for me, because separation increases the love. But in order to further sort of mollify the situation, Krishna revealed, he says, Napareham nirvati samjitam sadhukatva vibhuyashudaktiva. He said that actually I'm not in a position to repay the degree of love that you show to me. And which once again is very similar, it's in the same vein that comes here, that Krishna is expressing a certain level of, no, it's not a certain level, he's saying that he is dependent on his devotee, and that he actually acquires, in the example with Krishna, then he makes an inability. How is that possible, that Krishna is not able to do something? You know, philosophers ask this stupid question, can God create a mountain so heavy that he can't lift it? And Prabhupada would say, yes, they do, he can, and then he'll lift it. But what does it mean that Krishna can't reciprocate? And one of it is his own sentiment, his own feeling, that someone feels unable, and I'm sure we all have that experience. What's interesting to note here, all of these discussions actually reveal the personality of God. So we talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but what's the nature of that person? So here we're hearing about his nature, his person. And so when Krishna says that he's unable to repay, that's sort of the feeling when someone becomes very obliged to someone else for some service rendered, then they feel really, that doesn't matter what I do, I can't really repay you. Because especially love is not something that you feel that you can actually repay. So the other is that there are things that Krishna can't do. Ekanta, Ekeha Gurunandana. This word Eka comes up. Eka means one-pointed, and Ekanta Bhakti means one-pointed devotion. It means you just, and for instance, Narottam Das Thakur gives Hanuman as the example of Ekanta Bhakti. Srinate Janaki Nate Chvedam Paramatmani Itis Mamasa Sarvasya Rama Kamalalochana. Hanuman says, I know Lord Ramachandra is Lord Narayan, but still I can't worship Lord Narayan, I can only worship Lord Ramachandra. So that type of, and for us, and Prabhupada in so many places writes, that although there's no difference between Narayan and Krishna's incarnations and so on, but Gaudiya Vaishnavas are just fixed on Krishna. And not even Krishna in Dwarka or Mathura, but Krishna in Vrindavan. So that's Ekanta Bhakti. That's when a devotee has, Krishna becomes the only focus of his absorption. Now Krishna can't do that. He has many devotees to reciprocate with. So Bahu, he says, Bahu Sakyanantashar, his focus is on many people. He can't just exclusively focus on one devotee. He has to reciprocate. He has to reciprocate with many people, many devotees. So in that sense, Krishna is not able to do what devotees are able to do. Devotees don't have to think of anybody else but Krishna. Krishna has to think of all of his devotees. So he has to reciprocate with everyone. Otherwise, if you just focused on one, then the others, what happens to the others? So it's not Krishna's vrata. Krishna's vow is that he will always reciprocate with the devotee. And here, the Lord's also expressing that he's highlighting a certain aspect of how it is that he attains certain powers, how it is that he attains certain greatness. Of course, Krishna doesn't attain anything, he always has it. But still, we talk in the context of attaining because that's how we understand things. We only understand things when they happen. We don't understand how something can always be like that. So he says, yes, actually the reason that Krishna's lotus feet, there are so many verses, prayers, references to Krishna's lotus feet. I remember the first time after joining the temple I came home, and it seems like my mother had done some homework, and was reading through Prabhupada's books. And she says, "What is this lotus business?" She says, "Why is his feet like lotuses? Why not like rose? Why not like something else?" And of course, Yatad Pankaja Palasa Vilasya Bhakta. So this, one reason for the lotus is because of the nature of the lotus flower is that unlike the roses first of all don't grow in water, and the lotuses do, but although they grow in the water, they're above the water, so it reflects the nature of transcendence. And then, although my mother wouldn't understand because she was a rose lover, the lotuses are supposed to be the most beautiful flowers. Many statements in relationship to Krishna's Charana Renu, Krishna's lotus feet. Here it is Charana Padma. Charana Renu means dust, and Padma means the lotus feet. So Charana Padma Pavitra Renu. Padma is one type of lotus. Many different types of lotuses, and different names for lotuses are referred to in scripture throughout Bhagavatam. Some are, Padma is a red lotus, Indivara is a blue lotus, and there are day-blooming lotuses, night-blooming lotuses, land lotuses, the lotuses that also grow on land. There's water lotuses, lotuses that open in the daytime, lotuses that open at nighttime. There's black lotus, there's white, there's pink, and they have different characteristics. So it's a whole genre. And you'll find that some different lotuses are used in order to convey a particular type of message. But Vaishnavas are always after Krishna's lotus feet for many reasons. One is stated here, because Sadhya Kshata Akila. Kshata means to wipe out Akila Malam, and Malam means dirt, or the dirt of sinful activities. So Krishna's lotus feet free us from sinful activity. And of course that's not the ultimate benefit. The ultimate benefit of Krishna's lotus feet is that one actually attains full shelter, which means shelter from the material energy, and also one attains Krishna's eternal association. So sometimes it's just like Narottam says, Rako Ranga Charanira Pasa. He says, please keep me in the shelter of your lotus feet. So many of these things, previously worshipping Tulsi Devi, Kani Kani Chapapani Brahma Patadikani Cha. So just by circumambulating Tulsi Devi, we become free even from the sin of killing a Brahmin. Don't go around killing any Brahmins, but even that is possible. And then chanting Hare Krishna frees you from more sins than you can commit. But of course this is the preliminary effect. Ultimately, it's like clearing weeds. If you want to have a garden, first you have to clear out the weeds. So the goal of spiritual life is not to become sinless. That's the process, but the ultimate goal is ultimately to attain love for Krishna, which again, Krishna's lotus feet can give. But as I started initially, is there really is there really some type of spiritual dynamic that further empowers Krishna that doesn't empower Krishna on his own? And the answer is yes. Just like Krishna cannot have a unique concentration or a one-minded, one-track concentration on a devotee in the same way that a devotee can just think about him. Similarly, there's something plus that Krishna becomes empowered by when he serves his devotees. So in the process of Krishna consciousness, there's the flow of service. So service goes from one place to another. It goes from what is called the ashraya, the person who's giving service, to vishaya, the person who's getting the service. And that dynamic has a certain type of interaction or a certain empowerment comes as a result of that. So we're practicing devotional service. Why? Because executing devotional service empowers us. It purifies us, it does so many different things. So once again, Krishna is always the Vishaya. He's always the one who's being worshipped. So in terms of relationships, he has this particular, if he keeps this exclusive position, he's actually bereft of another aspect of the relationship, which is that he becomes the servitor. So in order for Krishna to actually become empowered by both aspects of devotion, bhakti, which is being a servant and being a servitor, Krishna then also serves. And when he serves, he gets something that he doesn't have when he's served. So when Krishna becomes a devotee, as in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's why the whole appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there. And it's described in the beginning of the 3rd and 4th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Krishna can't experience something as God that he experiences when he's a devotee. And what's being stated here also reflects that same type of experience, or at least the result of that experience, is that Krishna tastes Shri Radhaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanayaya Svadyayena Advita Kidrisha Vamadya Sokya Chasya. So these three things are going on, which Krishna as God can only experience when he takes the role of a devotee. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, and he comes in the role of a devotee. So when he says, don't call me God, it's not just because he's setting an example for us, it's because when you call him God, you're depriving him of a certain level of experience that he can only have as a devotee. And then Krishna says that the pleasure and the benefit that the devotees derive is much greater than what Krishna enjoys. So what the devotee derives from serving Krishna, what we relish when we chant Hare Krishna. Everyone relishes pleasure of chanting to the degree that they're advanced in Krishna consciousness. What does Krishna enjoy by hearing us chant Hare Krishna? He also enjoys, but his pleasure is less. At least that's what he says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So his pleasure is less. Now obviously Krishna's not going to settle for that he gets something less. So that's why he then is always in a position of service. course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he takes the position of servant, but you see the same thing. Krishna becomes, when the Rajasuya sacrifice happened, what did Krishna do? What was Krishna's service? Huh?
Take off the shoes from the Brahmins.
Yeah, he washed everyone's feet. Sudama Vipra visited Krishna. Krishna didn't have someone else take care of it. He personally took care of it. Krishna's driving Arjuna's chariot. So even while Krishna is God, Krishna is rendering service, and sometimes he gives up his godhood in order to be able to have his service. So it's an extra, and then by that, what happens is that his lotus feet attain this extra power by the grace of his own potency, by the grace of his own bhakti shakti. So Bhakti Devi empowers Krishna with something that he otherwise wouldn't get. Anyway, it's a little inconceivable, or maybe it's very inconceivable, how Krishna and his energies interact. But that's how Krishna tastes rasa. That's how Krishna experiences. And otherwise, if everything is just a given, and if everything is very easy, then the sort of the labor and the enjoyment of devotion and service is not there. So here Krishna says, yes, this is how my lotus feet destroy all sin, because I'm serving the devotee. Which also means that by service to devotees, you become free from all sinful reaction. And that's what we're doing. Sakshat Aditya Samasta Shasya. Yasha Prasad and Bhagavad Prasad. And of course this is a revelation. Remember, this is taking place at the gates of Vaikuntha, and here the Lord is sort of pacifying Jai and Vijay, and he's revealing his heart. He's revealing how devotees are very, very dear to him. And that ultimately this relationship of love is such a powerful thing that here he says it empowers him, that it makes it unable for him to actually repay a devotee, and that ultimately he becomes purchased. He becomes purchased by that love. And that's really the purpose of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, to ultimately reveal, which is half of Srimad Bhagavatam, to show how God becomes subordinate to love. Up until then, everything is all about how he reciprocates with different people according to their worship of him. But here it becomes something very different. And then here we have this as well. Very wonderful, sort of confidential revelation. And something that sort of incomprehensible to people of other faiths. But it's the real science of bhakti, or the science of devotion, which applies not only to us as devotees, but it applies to Krishna. So devotion is such a wonderful thing. Devotional service is such an attractive thing, it's such a powerful thing, that it attracts not only the devotee, but it attracts Krishna. And so we read later on in the 12th canto, where Markandeya Rishi sees Maya, he sees the material creation, and ultimately he sees Krishna lying on the water of devastation in the form of a little baby. And ultimately, because Krishna is never satisfied with anything, so yes, my lotus feet are like this, and all devotees want to touch my feet. But Krishna's, he's never satisfied with anything, so he wants to lick it and find out just exactly what it tastes like. What do my feet taste like? So he sucks his toe. Children suck their toes. So they're not tasting the same thing as Krishna's taste. So Krishna wants to take, what does it literally taste like? This nectar of my lotus feet that everyone's talking about. So there he's sucking his toe. Hare Krishna. We have 1.5 minutes. Anyone have any question?
May I please ask, in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 12, in texts 13 to 20, there are different qualities presented of someone that is very dear to Krishna, like being a kind friend to all being entities, not envious, tolerant, and so on. So, I would like to ask, should someone strive and try to cultivate those qualities, or given the fact that someone is following sadhana bhakti yoga, those qualities will automatically come in his heart?
No, we should cultivate those qualities. We should cultivate them. That's a different topic from this class. It's just like if you practice devotional service, sooner or later, or if you chant Hare Krishna, then sooner or later you're going to become offenseless in your chanting. But the recommendation is that you practice being offenseless. Otherwise, it's going to take a long, long time to come on its own. Anything else?
I wanted to ask, would there be a difference if Krishna did not manifest his humility quality? Meaning that if he would have the attitude, I am the Lord and it's your position and duty to serve me, would the relationship between him and the devotee be the same?
Krishna, it's not a matter of what happens if Krishna wouldn't manifest, like saying what happens if Krishna only has one arm, but it doesn't have. So you wouldn't be able to talk about humility if Krishna didn't manifest it, because that's where it comes from. So everything comes from him. And Krishna manifests humility in whether he's being worshipped as the Lord or whether he's just a cowherd boy. But it's always there. It's just there in different ways. Can't even say in different degrees. It's just there in different ways.
Krishna, we heard here that the Lord is detached from the... How is this detachment manifest in regard to Goddess of Fortune? Because ultimately she's one of his best devotees.
Yes, when here it says that he has no attachment, of course it should be seen in context of so many other statements where it says that obviously Krishna is attached to her and is attached to his devotees. But rather it's a statement of emphasis that Krishna is making in order to show the importance and the real power of this disposition of becoming a servant. Why? I've acquired such a disposition. In other words, I become such a good person that even though I haven't made any separate endeavor, and even though I haven't necessarily courted the goddess of fortune, still she's attached to me. You'll find sometimes, or often, statements in scripture where one thing says something different than something else, and both of them are true, therefore you have to be able to qualify. I forget the Sanskrit statement, or the Sanskrit terminology, but when something is obviously contradictory to a primary feature or a quality, then it has to be interpreted. So, Krishna loves his devotees. So when he says, I have no attachment for her, then you have to interpret that, because it's communicating something else. Okay, so
Thank you.
let's stop there, and then Sunday program at 4, or lecture 4 or 4:30?
4 to 4:30 is singing time, bhajan.
Okay.
But we can adapt.
No, I just want 4:30, so then I can come at 4:30 for class.
Okay.
And it's Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita regularly.
Fine.
We have in chapter 5 we are now.
Okay, good. I'm just here to fall in line. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Prema.